Rise and shine. Welcome to Sunrise Daily, coming to you live from Channels Television. I'm Edo State here in Lagos.
Yes, indeed. You should rise and shine. It's the 1st of December. You know, I'm keeping tabs with date on behalf of Ayo, who's not here today. And we have good reason to be excited because some people are about to get their lives transformed.
Absolutely.
Anyway, welcome to the program. I am Bukola Koka.
I mean, well, we could talk about how it's 25 days to Christmas. For some set of people...
24 days, you mean?
24 days now.
Today's the 1st.
Okay. Well,
my favorite time of the year.
I see. I can see the smile.
Yeah.
Okay, 24 days to Christmas for a lot of people. But for a group of people, it's like one day to Christmas for them. And I am talking about Channels Television's social enterprise program, Fund It Forward. Tomorrow is a grand finale, so you can expect that we'll be excited. You understand why the excitement is really thick in the air. Fund It Forward started, in October, and essentially it is our way of living true to that Ubuntu African expression, I am because we are. We brought together 12 change agents from across the country. There you see some of them with brilliant social enterprise ideas. These people, social entrepreneurs, I mean, their ideas range from making drugs accessible to everyday Nigerians, people in the hinterlands, to sustainable building, right? We have people who are focused on healthy food, healthy living, energy, fintech, and the rest. Young Nigerians, by the way, who are at least thriving to an extent in their business. So we brought all of them together to give them all of the right business education. We've talked about this for too long. We do not have all of the best business education for entrepreneurs, which is why you see businesses don't last for too long. We're not able to replicate wealth. So we thought, let's do something different. And we've had these change agents in the house for weeks now, weeks upon weeks, teaching them how to brand appropriately, how to pitch their ideas, how to iterate their product such that it is competitive and able to make profit. And tomorrow is the grand finale. So if you've not been watching this, you do not want to miss this at all. Bukola, you're not in the house. You're changing it outside the house, but I know you're excited about this as well.
Yes, indeed, I'm excited about this. Why? Because essentially it's for young people. And you know, we're in a new generation. Well, we are from the older stock, you know, but
I don't know about that.
The current generation, they're called the Gen Z or the millennials.
Right.
And you know, they have a different orientation.
True. Because, you know, when they graduate from the university these days and you do not have a skill, then you are considered to have missed it. True.
So this concepts, this theme, Channels Television's sponsored program, you know, it has come to empower this generation, so to speak. You know, it has come to transform their lives, has come to give them an opportunity for expression, it has come to ensure that they're not shouting from a hidden corner, it has come to give them visibility. And that's why, you know, in the last few weeks on Fund It Forward, they've been put through drills, you know, tasks that help them, you know exactly, you know, where they're headed, come to hone that vision and empower them and prepare them, you know, to be more ambitious and expansive with their ideas. You know, some of the game shows that they're put through, for instance, you know, ask them questions about the principles of business education and, you know, helps them, you know, to have that spirit of excellence, that attitude of excellence towards what they're doing. Another thing that you should be excited about as far as Fund It Forward is concerned is that, you know, there is inclusion. There are candidates from different parts of the country, and then they're getting a prize money, you know, regardless of whether there is one winner, you know. So they're also going to fund it forward in line with the concept. So who shouldn't be excited? Their Christmas is going to be different. Definitely all of those 12 candidates, because there's going to be a ricochet effect, you know, on the commerce in their locations. You know, they're also going to empower other people. Baokwe.
Right. We're going to come to Abuja in a moment, but just to let you know that we have a whopping 30 million naira up for grabs for the winning change agent. And it's aligned with our mission here at Channels Television. It's simple. Essentially, to produce and broadcast television program of quality and integrity such that we recognize and challenge the intelligence and curiosity of our viewers. Hundreds and hundreds of people, by the way, applied to be a part of Funded Forward. But the beauty is that even if you're not a part of the show, even if you're not one of the change agents, one of the 12 change agents, by the way, some of them have been unfunded, some of them have dropped out, but you'll hear their stories. The fact that they say, I may not have gotten the prize money, but I have learned a lot. They have had to face judges. In fact, some of them have had to go out on the street to get some sort of partnership with companies out there. So it's just real. It brings the real challenges they will face in the business world to them, but the beauty is they get someone to hold their hands. So there's a consultant that takes them through the day-to-day challenges they will face and helps them to find ways around it. Then you have the judges, people who are captains of industry, essentially telling them that, well, I love this idea, but based on my experience, I think this is how you should do it. And that is what Funded Forward does. That is what the Nigerian spirit should be. We talk about how we need to love ourselves more, and that is what we're bringing on board. This is unlike some of the things you have seen in the past, and I'm not even mentioning names, but this we expect will have, as you said, Bukola, a ricochet, a ripple effect, not just the 12 agents, the hundreds of people that applied, but the thousands of entrepreneurs who, by the way, are responsible for employing more than half of the working population in Nigeria. The NSMEs, it's no more MSMEs, it's now NSMEs, so that's the nano.
What's the N?
That's a nano.
Nano
businesses.
Nano businesses.
The micro businesses, the small and medium enterprises. They're responsible for, some say, 70, 80% of employment in Nigeria. So it's important to pay attention to them. So are you ready for Funded Forward?
Speaking of consultants, I had the Director General of the Financial Derivatives Company only days ago, visiting them, inspiring them, coming to inspire them, and also commending the quality of professionals that are in the Funded Forward business house. So
big ups to Leap Africa, Sissy Hub, and of course the Lighthouse Television that is, of course, championing this beautiful production, I must say. If you've missed it, do not miss the grand finale tomorrow. So keep a date with us here at Channels Television for Funded
And if
Forward.
you've missed it, you can also catch up on past episodes on our YouTube channel, channelstv.com/channelsweb, I believe.
Yeah, just go over to channelstv.com or go to Funded Forward online on Twitter, on Facebook, Instagram. You get access to past snippets of the show. But take a look at, well, a snippet of just how far we've come with Funded Forward. I'll be back. Well, we're not the only ones excited about Funded Forward. Ladies and gentlemen, make welcome Maupe and Chamberlain from Abuja. Good morning, guys.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Welcome to this. And yes, indeed, it's the 1st of December. It's that month where you really, if all else, as much as possible, just thinking about it, waking up this morning, December 1st, wow, how time flies. That should bring a broad smile to everyone's faces. You know how the month is growing up, and we don't want to lose any parts of that whatsoever. Yes, I'm Chamberlain, so what a Friday it is here.
Indeed, what a Friday it is. I'm actually trying to catch a bit of Buki's contagion. She was saying this is my favorite time of the year, and indeed, for many people it is, but I think it's also important to remember those for whom, they might have very, very sour memories about this time of the year. I'm hoping that the love and the joy and the good cheer that generally spreads around this season will comfort them and help lift their spirits, regardless of whatever it is they've been through in the past, and also regardless whatever the economic situation, because for many people, it's the economy that they're looking at, which is not smiling. But welcome, Maupe Ogun Yusuf. The conversation around Funded Forward So apt, so lovely to listen to. I mean, I could go on listening to you guys, Bukola and Kayode, on the program, the show, so to speak. It's been quite an experience, certainly an alternative to many of the reality TV shows out there, which, you know, many times I just wonder, what precisely are they competing for? But this one, I am very clear on what it is that they're competing for and what impact, what positive impact they stand to be able to make at the end of the day, even if they do not go home with that mouth-watering prize money. 30 million naira, I certainly could do with that. Kimberly, you?
Well, I think it's very, very refreshing and very good to see this social entrepreneurs immensely critical at this time to come up with that initiative, because, I mean, you look at the economy, you look at young people, what they're doing, where their mind is, where they're headed, how it's impacting the society, the economy. I mean, here we are talking about the budget, and there's several conversations about just having a base. I mean, this is a very good opportunity, actually, if the authorities are not thinking about it. This kind of scenarios and initiatives could be a springboard for cottage industries across board. You can leverage on this kind of scenario. I mean, there you could see lots of critical thinking coming to bear, which is lacking in many parts of our country anyway. And so you see all of those. You also just see that it does highlight and to a large extent address the importance of us, eliminating this bureaucracy towards accessing capital, which is what several people need. Okay. And so once you see this kind of initiatives and scenarios, I don't think they need any telling, any invitation to just leverage on this with both hands, different government agencies, such that they can fund the economy forward. Well, let's go ahead then and take you through some of the dailies here this morning. We're going to start with Vanguard newspaper. Yes, they talk about economy and businesses, so can never underestimate the importance of initiatives like this one. So look at how Vanguard leads here today. FGs, MDAs, now undertakers of businesses. This is ascribed to Manufacturing Association of Nigeria Manufacturers and NECA, Employers Association. So look at the riders here. Lament rising inflation, multiplicity of taxes, threats of strikes, protests. Not a good combination. Say Nigeria needs investments to create jobs. Hence initiatives like that one, so that once you have that across the country, you have different people looking forward to something, so you could channel resources and wealth in the right areas. It will be immensely important. And then the other rider, Lord organized businesses for resilience. People not interested in budget figures if prices of bread, rice remain high. Ascribed to Rewane, couldn't agree more. Could not say it better.
What did you say about bread again?
People budget figures don't mean anything to people.
Oh, yes.
If the price of bread and rice, that's what we intend to define. This morning, I think we'll try and break that down and humanize the importance of having a budget, that highfalutin word budget. Yeah. This one is christened.
That has an impact, a direct impact on the lives of the people.
Exactly.
That affects their everyday existence. And that headline is really telling, Chamberlain, that federal government MDAs, now undertakers of businesses. They're supposed to enable business. Yeah. They're supposed to empower businesses. And it's very interesting that I think Vanguard is focusing on federal government agencies. But states, if you think federal government agencies and MDAs are the ones, really undertaking, go to the states and see what is happening there. You will ask yourself, are these people existing to serve people, or are they existing just for the sake of existence? Because I don't think that they even understand what their role is in empowering businesses and empowering ideas. I don't think a lot of people who work in our civil service understand it, because if they did, I would think that people will be a little more active, a little more agile, a little more interested, a little more passionate about what it is that they do. Well, some people do. Some very few agencies heads do. But when you go down the line, you'll be wondering, how do these people get here? How did they get here?
Yeah, very, very important food for thoughts. But look at this other part. Ads, you can fake news, but can't fake prosperity.
No, you can't.
So all of those schemes that you see government opportunity, government agents or agencies or groups come up with, can't fake prosperity. If they don't have it, they don't have it. So, and you know what it is. When people are down, they fear no fall, and they're angry, it could be very dicey. So the president, I think he spoke about the importance of private sector, that they want to see partner with private sector. Mr. President, I think they're looking at an opportunity right here. That's Vanguard today.
Well, The Guardian is looking at the International Day on HIV. They have a big story for you on pages 4 and 5. Amid ravaging scourge, HIV cure vaccine still elusive 42 years on. That's a lead story right here. So while it is, we've made some progress with awareness around HIV and AIDS, it doesn't mean that more and more people are not living with the disease. 1.9 million Nigerians living with HIV/AIDS as of 2022. 42% of this number are male and 58% are female. So you also have other infographics around here talking about new infections among key populations. So people really need to, be aware. They're usually people whom we ignore, and we need to pay a little more attention to drug addicts, female sex workers, inmates of correctional facilities, and so much more. You have all of the details right there on the front page of The Guardian. Take a look at the other stories they have here. Lagos Assembly takes inventory of failed state roads. Okay, so it looks like the Assembly is getting a bit proactive. Page 26 is where you find details. 135 billion naira intervention funds. Senate may alert anti-graft agencies on recovery. National Assembly begins debate on 2024 budget despite debt servicing concerns. That's right there. And UN leaders call for action, high ambition as COP28 opens in Dubai. We'll leave it there for the Guardian newspapers.
And turn our attention next to the Nigerian Tribune this morning, which also focuses on something very important that affects you and I. And, it comes with some form of contradiction, if you ask me. Listen to this, Coyote. 80% surge in food importation, alarming. That's ascribed to the federal government. But that's not the only interesting bit of it. 88.5 million Nigerians threatened with insufficient food consumption. Food inflation stood at 31.52% in October. Says Nigeria has highest rate of stunted children globally. Explains what is being done in reverse. So if 88.5 million Nigerians are threatened with insufficient food consumption, where's the funding coming from for 80% surge in food importation? Definitely some people are funding food importation.
It doesn't make sense a lot of times when you look at these things. You would hear that we don't have a reason to import food. Because we're well and able with the arable land, with our population. We're well and able to adequately feed ourselves. So when you see these sorts of headlines, it's just an irony of sorts, lots of ironies, and you wonder who's seeing this and who's doing something about this.
And what's the budget going to do about it? I believe that's a question Chamberlain and Mark were asking, 25.7 trillion naira is ambitious, but how does it bring down 27.5 rather? I reversed it. How does it bring down the cost of a bag of rice from 50,000 naira? And the next one also leads us to the next question, which is closer to the bottom strip of the paper. 1.35 billion naira gas intervention project. Senators kick as CBN Petroleum Ministry trade blame. And the important thing is to get the price of cooking gas down from 15,000 naira, which keeps rising, to what it was before. Let's just take a quick check on politics. It's at the top of the nameplate. Ayedatiwa presides over Ondo Exco meeting. All political issues resolved. That's ascribed to the government. Assembly withdraws case against deputy governor. They have the president to thank for that one. And there's also this one, Shaibu free to contest, but PDP members will decide Edo Guba candidates. That's ascribed to the governor. Of course, the governor was speaking yesterday, and you can catch it on the news at 10 on our YouTube channel. Let's leave it there for the Nigerian Tribune. Business Day leads with this one. Jakpa hurricane crumbling Nigeria's healthcare. I mean, I saw a report, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, about a certain university teaching hospital that had to close some, is it wards, as a result of lack of nurses and the rest. Just the other day, a governor was speaking. I can't recall now if it was a governor of Edo State. One of the governors in the north was saying he has revamped the health sector, but there are no doctors because all of the doctors yes, have exited the country. I think the report was about Luth. I think it was about Lagos University Teaching Hospital, something to follow up on, definitely. But this is something we had feared. This is something we had seen coming. But now it is here with us, and it's even getting worse. Jakpa hurricane, that's what Business Day calls it. Again, a wake-up call if we needed anyone at that. And just to add to that, it's hitting the education sector as well, and the banking sector. Indeed. As well. And I'll just take one more for you. On the top of the front page, debt service for 2024 is 16 times poverty war chest. So I imagine this story saying, well, we budgeted some funds to solve the poverty situation, but sadly, what we're using to service our debt is 16 times what we're trying to use to curb poverty. So you wonder, in terms of, business sense, more than what we're using to curb poverty. So it doesn't quite make sense, because we'll have used that fund to actually solve poverty, which is what we always say we're trying to borrow to solve, to build infrastructure, which will make businesses work, and of course will employ more people and end poverty. But there you go. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't balance up well. I'll leave it there for you, and with the Business Day newspaper. Back to you guys.
All right, let's take a look at New Telegraph next. No ex-governor with corruption case or corruption cases will escape probe. And this is ascribed to the EFCC. Says its core mandate remains Senate to involve anti-graft body in CBN 250 billion naira gas funds probe. You know, it's I don't know. Sometimes you see all these headlines and it just looks like fairy tales to you, especially at the point where they keep telling us that, look, the economy is wobbly, we need to gird our loins, buckle, you tighten your belts, and cut coats according to our cloth. And then you see the way and manner which government agencies bastardize funds, public funds, not their personal money though, public funds, because they clamp down on businesses, on individuals who default with their taxes and things like that. And then you see all these kind of things time and again. It's really frustrating and upsetting for every person. And you look to the out there, and when was it? I don't know how many people will forget that in a hurry, how the palliatives, you saw what went on in the country, how no matter the excuses they gave, they hoarded noodles to, they warehoused it to use it for what? Distribution for political purposes. Just, that tells you the mindset of where these people's minds are, where their head is. So, but we have to keep asking some of these questions to ensure that the right things are done. You're asking us to uphold our own, pay this tax and pay. You have to be seen to be doing the right things. You just have to. Stay at home. Southeasterners not known for laxity, indolence. Governor Umba says investors now ready for businesses or for business in Enugu. So we have several other scenarios here. So We'll see how much, if they go through, I mean, their narratives, this Senate to involve anti-graft body, if they come through with it, because, and anyone remind me, please, which of these probes or investigations or oversights has come to a proper conclusion, the history of any Senate, from 1 to 9. That's no telegraph.
A few have, interestingly, Chamberlain, a few have, but the question is, what is done with it? Because the Senate can only do what the Senate can do, which is come up with, you know, a report at the end of the day and recommendations which they give to the executive. If the executive feels that you're not going to do anything about it, that's what happens. It remains just that, a probe.
Yeah, so the question then is, if they know, or whichever one they came up with, which doesn't come to my memory now, they know, because I know they deliberated at some point, of doing something about their resolutions, giving it some sort of force of law.
Of law, yes.
And that appears to have died a natural death. So they know what usually happens to theirs. And probably that's why people came up with that term, from what they've seen too, that they are, you know those two words, rubber stamp.
Oh, rubber stamp. I thought you were going to say toothless bulldog.
To make it shorter.
But,
well,
but rubber stamp is another term, you know. Rubber stamp, I do fear that this particular Senate could be maybe, some people say even worse than a rubber stamp, maybe a photocopy.
Oh.
I sincerely hope not. I sincerely hope that we see a Senate that is up and standing up for its own independence and saying that they want to do so much more, you know, holding the feet of the executive to the fire. I don't know how that's going to happen, but I'm hoping that the opposition within the Senate will ginger their own fellow colleagues who are in other political parties, especially the ruling political party, to do so much more. And from what we've seen so far, we haven't heard their voices. We've only heard their voice once, and we need to hear their voices more often. Who knows? Maybe the opposition can even come within the same political party. It won't be a bad idea. I'm taking a look at another paper for you. This Nigeria, 88.5 million Nigerians face insufficient food consumption. Federal government raises the alarm over 80% surge in food importation. So what exactly is this food we're importing? It'll be very interesting to read the details on page 19 of the paper, because people who cannot eat, who are not getting enough food, they're not the ones that will have money to import food. Many Nigerians eat what is generally grown in the country. So if we're importing 80% of our food, what precisely are we importing? We have to know what it is that we're importing. Are we importing beef? Is it fish? What precisely are we importing? Is it grains? You know, it's very important to know the breakdown of this. So pick up a copy of this Nigeria and take a look at it. CBN 135 billion naira gas probe. National Assembly may involve EFCC, said Senator Jarigbe. That is also right there. Brainstorm on how best to fight crime. Wike charges military. Okay, on what occasion is he doing that? You might want to find out on page 7 of the paper. They also have a story for you on how many residents are living with HIV/AIDS in Anambra. Over 98,960 residents living with HIV/AIDS in Anambra. And Chamberlain, why we talk about all of these figures, which really are about people, I think that sometimes it's also good to look at where we're coming from, especially with regards to HIV/AIDS. And where we intend to go. I imagine that where we intend to go is a total eradication of this scourge. But I think that this is one particular campaign that has really made progress over the years in terms of the stigma attached to it, in terms of the life expectancy attached to it, the expectations when people are living with HIV/AIDS. I think that there's a lot more awareness and a lot more enlightenment around prevention of the illness. So I'm hoping that it's something I will continue, especially looking at the fact that on the International Day, many media houses really get on it and seize the opportunity to educate the public as to where we currently are and what more needs to be done.
Part of what more needs to be done, two things that we should highlight on: research, and then the Ministry of Health should also talk to us about you know, the vaccines. When COVID came through, there was that conversation about us having, you know, at least being a major base and hub to meet our vaccine needs. And so the health sector just needs, it's a lot. You know, when you think about the health sector, so much blood rush to the brain because there's so many loose ends, so many things. There are different policies, quite all right, but when there's just so many loose ends, you just wonder the kind of impact that you see them make. So, yes, we've come a long way, but, you know, we can still do way better than this, though.
Oh, well, I think that will be it. Well, they also have that story. Nigerians not interested in budgetary arithmetic if bread, rice prices remain same.
There you go.
Shall I say, if it even goes up?
Well said.
If it goes up, that statement attributed to Mr. Rwani. We'll leave it there for this Nigeria.
Yeah, valid questions there about the scrutiny on the budget or maybe the lack of it. But Daily Independent chooses to do a different path this morning with its own headline. And listen to this one. Lagos demolition. Ohaneze insists state government must compensate victims. You know, so if you had any doubts that there was some form of witch hunting, alleged witch hunting now, or ethnic coloration to the ongoing demolition in Lagos, then you might have to think again with Ohaneze speaking this way. And we tried to have that conversation days ago on the program, but, you know, due to time factor, we couldn't exhaust all of these issues. But
he said
Ohaneze is speaking.
Yeah, the commissioner for urban planning said that urban development, I guess, he was saying that, well, there is no ethnic coloration. And I think the Commissioner for Water Resources had also said that he doesn't see ethnicity and race. And said that, well, if anybody has any documentation to that effect that, well, my house was demolished and my property was demolished unjustly or unlawfully, they should come forward. So I think it's important to also ask those questions. If you have those documents, by all means, if not to government, put it out there. The media will follow up and ensure that the right thing is done.
Is done, indeed. But I wonder if Ohaneze is speaking for everyone or for those who have been affected at the Alaba market, Alaba International Market and Trade Fair Complex. And you know,
or in other states.
Those people are predominantly from a certain part of the country. Or are they speaking for the generality of Lagosians affected? You'll have to pick up a copy of Daily Independent to find out the exact detail there. But, you know, just to add that, you know, this has had its impact. The ongoing demolition has had its impact on commerce in Lagos, on businesses. And this, we all know, is how people eke out a daily living for themselves. A couple of other stories coming from the front page of Daily Independent this morning. Issue executive order for state, local government police. Afenifere tells Tinubu. Of course, security is a very big subject matter, and of course it's high on the 2024 budget presented by the president just 2 days ago. And lastly, from the front page of Daily Independent this morning, Senate reps open debate on 2024 budget, insist on implementation. That's a page 6 read. Let's leave it there for Daily Independent.
Speaking of implementation, Nigeria News Direct leads with the January to December budget cycle as the governors blame inflation for poor implementation of 2023 budgets. So, city writers appeal to lawmakers to hasten approval of 2024 budgets as implementations of 2023 state budgets suffer backlogs. So we're paying attention to the subnationals as well. Yes, we talk about the federal government's budgets, the MDAs at that level, but there's also states' budget. The MDAs, if I may say, at the state level as well, who, by the way, are the ones who the people, businesses interface with directly. You realize that majority of the taxes you pay as a business person will be coming from either the local government, the state government, and the ones that come to your place. So you need to pay attention because you pay taxes to those states, to those local governments, so you have to ensure.
Those government officials.
Exactly. So ensure that your eyes are on them as well. There's this one just on top. Ayedatiwa presides over Ondo Exco meeting as lawmakers withdraw appeal. So that happened yesterday. And you wonder, is this an end to all of the drama we've seen play out in Ondo State? Or is this a calm before the storm? Because it's politics, you never know these things. What's going to happen next? What did the president say should happen? Does the president have a right to say what will happen in Ondo State? Lots of questions, really, but we'll keep our eyes on Ondo. Ondo and Edo, by the way, are the two states. They're
neighboring states.
And then the elections are neighbors as well. So we look out for that one. But what's most important is that governance in those states should not cease, regardless of whatever issues the principals have with their deputies. But that's it with the Nigerian News Direct this morning, and that's it with the look at the front pages. We are back with something that has been trending for the past couple of days of the program. So stick with us right here on Sunrise Daily.
From what I have seen and what I'm hearing, the threat to PDP is not from PDP or from us in the state. It's from outside. I don't know why anybody in PDP will want PDP destroyed. If we destroy PDP, we destroy our democracy. We've tried democracy before. We had problems. We've tried military rule. We are now back to democracy. God forbid that this our democratic practice or experience, suffers again. PDP is the basis of democracy in Nigeria. So anybody who does anything hurtful to make sure that they weaken PDP to the extent of destroying PDP is not helping Nigeria and is not helping democracy in Nigeria. And we're not going to sit down in Edo and fold our arms. We'll continue to do what we need to do to strengthen our party and make sure our party plays its role as the leading party in this state.
The party has no preferred candidate for the 2024 governorship election in Edo State. No preferred candidate. So any insinuation, any thinking that is done and dusted, it's not true. On your behalf, we promise a level playing field for every aspirant. We will follow the constitution of the party, and the guidelines are spelled out by the headquarters of the party in the conduct of the congresses and the primary elections coming up. What we will not allow you to do as an aspirant is to dictate to us how the process should be.
All right, welcome back. Yes, indeed, we'll be focusing on Edo politics, and Anselm Mujezwa joins us. He is the PDP governorship aspirant for the state. I was going to say chairman, but I know you'd understand why. You've been chairman of the party, you've been chairman of even the APC itself, so sometimes it's confusing on the head. Say, look, which one, where are we pitching this now? But again, thank you for joining us on the program. So tell us, you've thrown your hat into the ring. I mean, you're going for this one. What kind of reaction are you getting having joined the race?
Yeah, good morning, Chamberlain. Thank you for having me here this morning. In the last few months, I've been going around consulting with the leadership of my party and some leaders of our society here in Edo. And the response has been very, very encouraging. Very, very encouraging in the sense that you know about the situation of our party here in Edo over some time now. And you also know that it is not the very best. But going around, I have gone around all the major participants or the major leaders involved in this situation. And I think we can find common ground.
But why do you think so? Because there's, several, quote, heavyweights joining the fray. And then there's talk about the governor also interested in getting his voice heard in the party. Then you hear party people saying, look, no aspirant should determine or try to tilt it in their way or the other. So it comes across to onlookers that, look, this tussle is not going to be as straightforward, even though you're optimistic it will be.
You know, the very nature of politics requires that things must be, people can take their positions, but in trying to find common ground, then there has to be some level of consensus. The governor, for instance, it is usual for a governor to have a favorable successor or an acceptable successor, but it's not exclusive to him. He will require the assistance of the leadership of the party to achieve that objective. You know, don't forget that this is politics. This is not an authoritarian system. Therefore, it is important that in seeking whatever you seek in politics, you need to persuade other interests. You need to negotiate with them. It's a give and take situation. And sooner or later, you find common ground. So I think the most important thing now is for all parties involved to consider the interest of the party upon which all of us stand. If the party goes down, we go down with it. So in doing that, we must be in a position to make sacrifice. So our attitude to the situation, I think, is the most important at this point in time.
So will you be willing to make the sacrifice if you're asked to? And what would the conditions be for you to do so?
I don't have to make sacrifice. I am going to be the instrument that will be used to get all parties together because I know all the major players. They are all my friends. I have spoken with them. I trust them, and I believe they trust me. So I can be the one to midwife this process. There is distrust in the system.
Wow. So assuming the governor says Aswen is his man or he puts him forward while Olu holds down the LP ticket being from the south, and then probably the party will then be forced to queue behind that one because, you know, he will throw his weights, his political weights, behind whoever he chooses. Why do you think you will stand a chance if that were to play out?
Well, like I told you, the governor may have his preference, but he will only do or succeed if he has the cooperation of other major players within the party. I believe that the governor is in a vantage position. He has information from all sources, including intelligence reports. He should know by now whose chances are best. But I cannot speak for him. I have been in touch with him even before I started on this journey. And during the period, he has never indicated to me that he has a preference. I am yet to see anybody who will tell you that His Excellency Godwin Obaseki has told him expressly that this is the position. So I would rather not speculate. Rather, I look at my own chances. I have looked at the state. I believe that I can add value to whatever is ongoing at the moment. And I do recognize the fact that our problem is a political problem. It requires a politician with experience who also has the vision that is, you know, in agreement with the ongoing progress that Edo has made over time. So I believe very sincerely that this is when the time has come for me to make my contribution to the development of Edo State.
I really cannot help but just take a look at, you know, I'm looking at you and I'm wondering, this was a total grafting of the APC into the PDP. And I'm wondering, who is the PDP going to be competing against? And this is no, you know, this is no offense to the APC, and I hope they don't take any. But
no, not an offense. You have made the proper observation. If we handled ourselves well, we would have had a monumental success. We would have made a monumental success of our cooperation. You know, if you look at the election of 2020, the results, Edo has never had it like that. All we needed to do was to build up on it. But unfortunately, our leaders failed to agree on issues, and they are, in my opinion, deploying the wrong methods for resolution. Conflict, in my opinion, does not help political. You know, you can imagine what is going on in the judiciary. Everybody is blaming the judiciary. But if the politicians had managed themselves properly, if they had sought and obtained political solutions, then there would have been no need to go to the judiciary. This is one of those classical cases where handling of this issue is what, in my opinion, is important. It's imperative, really. If PDP must succeed in Edo State, people must learn to make sacrifice. They must shift their position. Let us meet at some point where we can all reach some level of agreement and trust, and then we begin to build up on it. Thankfully, there is enough time. You know, they say a day is a lifetime, you know, in the life of a politician.
Very true. A day is a lifetime indeed. But I'm really wondering whether those of you who came from the APC to the PDP in Edo State can make the demands that you're making of the PDP in that state. I know that now you can say that, well, we're bona fide members of the party, haven't delivered the governor. The governor has remained faithful to the party. He hasn't spoken about leaving, and he's been quite, let's say, forthright in terms of his dealings. But then you must also remember that there are people whom you met in that party, and I'm sure that they too would have wanted to take shots at the governorship position as well. Do you think that it is right that, you know, you ask that people should make sacrifices for those who were hitherto not within the party?
Well, you see, the situation we find ourselves is where the party has to make up its mind what will be in its best interest. Whatever decisions they have made in the past, I do not say it is sacrifice. I would say it is a step they took, knowing that that will be the best possible step in order to achieve the results that we want. What did we want? We wanted victory. God gave us victory. Today, we are in a very delicate situation. Now, you need to look at everybody, and then you pick your right person. Whether he is old, whether he is new, we are PDP. So whatever we do must be determined by what is best, what is in the best interest of the party. What is in the best interest of the party? Who can you sell to the people of Edo at this point that they will accept from you and vote for? Who will enable you to win the election? Who has the experience? Who has the knowledge? And who has the skills? Who can manage all of us better? That is the question. Not a matter of where you come from, how you come from, or no. I don't think that is helpful.
It is interesting that you are talking about, you know, who the PDP can sell to the people of Edo State. I mean, only recently paying a visit to Edo and looking at the, will I say, the convivial relationship that seemed to be existing between the main political actors. I had the privilege of attending Alagodaro only recently, and I saw that, you know, all of the heavyweights in Edo politics were at, you know, that particular summit. And I was wondering, you know, if the primaries for the PDP in Edo State, or even the primaries of any political, well, I don't know how it's going to be in other political parties, but looking at all the political actors that are there, I'm wondering whether a consensus candidate, do you see the PDP going into primaries, or do you think that they most likely will adopt a consensus candidate? Because it does appear that this ticket is going to be very hotly contested. It appears to me, and I could be wrong, you can correct me if I am, or if you don't agree, that whoever it is gets the ticket of the party will most likely, you know, it's almost like as if it's a done deal for that person in terms of becoming governor. Do you agree?
Well, you see, it is true. I was at Alauda myself, and I would say it was a very well organized event, and I think that kudos should go to the governor and the organizers. Having said that, quite a number of political leaders were there, but I can tell you, quite a number were also not there. Those who ought to be there were not there. That is a worrying situation for those of us who are here. So those are the things we want to work on. Those are the things we want, an all-inclusive situation. You see, about consensus. Consensus comes in various ways. It may not be 100%. If you make 60%, I think that's a fantastic result. But the point about it is this. This is not the first time we are confronted with a situation like this. All the elections we have had since 1999, we have had issues of multiple aspirants. It's not new. And when political leaders meet, it is not for public consumption. At those points where they reach consensus, each one goes to his various locations and implements what they have all agreed. And that is the result, of the exercise. Even the incumbent, His Excellency, when he contested, he had quite a number of people contesting with him from across the state. But when we reached a consensus amongst ourselves, we went to the stadium to implement it, and he emerged victorious. So there are ways and means that these issues are resolved. All it requires, number one, like I said, the right attitude. Number two, people must be willing to shift their positions. It's about persuasion, negotiation, and you arrive at a resolution. That is the key to this. In Asian language, we say it is not the eye with which you eat pounded yam that you use to divide meat. So when you see politicians being convivial in, social events, that is different when they want to make critical political decisions, then the cold one comes in, and people have to be realistic. The truth about it is all the efforts we are making is to enable us win the election in September 2024. And if you don't have a good product, then it's dead on arrival.
I certainly will keep that proverb in mind when next I see them shaking hands and backslapping themselves. But
yes.
Let's go to Lagos. Let's go to Lagos now. I know my colleagues have questions for you.
All right, thank you, Mark. I just want to quickly get your thoughts on what the governor said about the division, the issues within the PDP. For him, he believes that the division, the drama we've seen is not from within, but from outside players. I wonder if you agree with him on that one. If you do, then who is responsible for it, or who are the people responsible?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Right, I'll just repeat my question. I want to get your thoughts on what Governor Obaseki said just before we came to you about the issues, the conflict within the PDP in Edo State. He believes that it is caused by players or parties from outside and not necessarily people from within. Do you agree with him? If you do, then who are these people responsible? Why do they have so much influence within the PDP?
Unfortunately, I don't have the advantage of the information available to His Excellency. And therefore, I may not be able to comment, effectively on that. But in politics, you can't discount any possibilities. But your ability to respond to it, is what I think is important. So it is good that His Excellency is aware of that, and therefore, he probably will know the steps to take to ensure that we are not divided. What is important to me is that should PDP go to election in a fractured form, the self-defeat has already started. Therefore, it is important that all of us must try to work together. Even those who may have left in anger, we must take steps to retrieve them. Because politics, as they say, is a game of numbers. Again, I have to fall back to my native language or proverb. They say we are not enough. We are still counting, mad people. What we need to do is to ensure that we are able to accommodate ourselves. Let us look at our collective interest. Let us subsume our personal interest and look at the interest of the party that made us what we are. That is what is important. What do we need to do to ensure that PDP wins Edo State in September 2024? That should be at the back of everybody's mind, right from Mr. Governor down to the lowest party member in Edo State. That is my position.
Right. So does the governor have a say in who should become the candidate of the PDP come 2024?
I wish you could speak up, please.
Yes, I am. My question is, does the governor then, in your opinion, have a say in who becomes the candidate of the PDP come 2024?
But of course, the governor is a very critical component. As a matter of fact, the entire process will revolve around him. But, you know, like I said, he can't do it alone. He can't do it alone. He needs leadership. You know, no matter how, the only omnipotent being is God. All of us have limitations. You know, if I need something as a governor, then I will identify leaders across the state and I will romance with them. I will interface with them. I will interact, you know, until everybody, you know, gets involved, or at least most people. That has been the culture, and it's a tradition. You cannot, like Chief Fabiola said, you can't shave people's heads, you know, in their absence. And again, let me even say this: if the governor is aware that there are some set of people that will not be acceptable, it is in his own self-interest to ensure that in carrying out this exercise, he takes it in mind that there are no areas, so that we don't even, you know, have problems before we even start the journey.
So, Mr. Jeswa,
it has to be sensitive to the feelings of everybody.
Right. So my question is...
That is why he's the leader.
Okay, I'll come to your political background and why you think you're fit for this job. But a quick follow-up to that then is, what are you exactly angling for? As you said, politicians are a very interesting set of people. So, I mean, you might expect them to do this and they're actually, you know, aiming for another thing. Some would say you declaring for governor at this time is just for you to have a bargaining chip. Such that, well, you aim for the moon. If you miss it, you fall amongst the clouds and what have you. So what exactly are you angling for? Is it governorship or nothing for you, or you might be able to settle for a political solution to this if the governor is willing?
Anybody who is familiar with my development in politics should tell you that arguably I'm the most, I may not be the oldest in age, but in terms of experience, I am one of the oldest politicians in Edo State, having been there since 1982. I've had the benefit of serving in various governments in this state, in various capacities as well. And therefore, you may say, I have seen it all. To suggest that at this my age and with my experience, that I will be coming here just to see what I can get out of the process, I think is a bit, you know, unlike me. What I can tell you, I have looked at Edo State. Look, I traced our history. If you listen to my declaratory speech, this problem did not start with Obaseki. Let nobody situate it on his table. It started from 1999, precisely from 2003 to date. We have had successive political issues amongst our major political leaders, which has affected everybody in the state. And it has become a recurrent decimal. I have looked at it, I have studied it, and I know where the solutions are. And that is one of the major reasons why I have offered myself. In addition to that, in spite of all the efforts we have made, even as a nation, Nigeria is not in production. And even if we are in production, we are not in processing, not to talk of manufacturing. If we don't deepen our economy, there is no way we can get out of this mess that we have found ourselves. I also have solutions to deepen the economy of Edo State and perhaps join others to give an example that Nigeria should follow. So I have the knowledge, I have the ability, I also have the vision. I am going to also take advantage, if you know, the current governor has in his own wisdom created a roadmap for 30 years. It is just for us to sit back, follow it, and make amendments as we move on. If there are other areas that we feel we can, add value, of course we will do so. I have spoken about so many things. If you look at the attitude of public servants to citizens, you will not call them servants. They behave like masters. Sometimes some of us, we feel that we can come and talk to our people to say, look, these citizens are our masters. Let us treat them as such. Let's treat them in a humane manner, even if we don't want to be their servants. But at least let us treat our citizens with respect. Secondly, there's this sore issue of land acquisition by state. I think that there are, improvements that we can make in the process, involve the community in the land administration system, so that we can have a conducive atmosphere, so that investors can even have the confidence to come in and feel safe in Edo. There are so many things that we can do. I think the main word there is attitude, following which, experience. Next to that, skills. Our problem in Edo today is not, look, this same Obaseki that you see people, talking about, it is the citizens that gave him the name Wake and See, arising from his activities in government. He has not changed, but his rating has changed. Why? Politics. We need to deploy political skills to get out of this morass.
Besides all of these programs that you have enumerated, Mr. Jesua, what about the federal roads in Edo State? What plans would you have to ensure that there's a partnership between the state and the federal government to get it done? And do you have any reservations about the disposition of the incumbent so far, in making demands for the federal government to, ensure to bring attention to speak to the roads? Because the deputy governor hinted at, the sour relationship, so to speak, between the state and the federal government and how it has impacted on the delay in getting those roads rehabilitated.
Well, under the constitution of our country, the primary purpose of government is the welfare and security of its citizens. Having said that, in the past, we have had situations where state has intervened in situations of federal roads going bad. It got to a point, I think the federal government asked the states not to get involved anymore because they will not get refund. And these are huge funds. But I think there was a time, some parts of our state, namely Ekpoma area and Saple Road here in Benin, we had a terrible situation. The communities even started coming out and all that. And the governor went to try and do some intervention. He was told clearly that he must move out of sight, that the federal government has already given out a contract, for these jobs. And he had no option but to move. But no sooner than he left, the road was abandoned. It is even worse now than it was before. But now this is a new administration. The minister, I watched him, he has made a statement that he is willing to, cooperate with the state. I will take him on his words. We will not only meet with the federal government, even the contractor must be part of that effort, so that if we put in an investment, then the contractor must be willing to sign a domiciliation agreement such that when federal government is paying, they pay to us that which is due to us. I think that is one way we can resolve it. The attitude, in my opinion, is good so far. The minister has made his point. It is for us to reciprocate. Having regards to the relationship between the federal government and the state, this is what happens when we do not stop playing politics. When a government is elected, politics ought to stop and governance ought to take over. When issues of governance take precedence, the issue of which side of the divide you belong will not arise. We are looking at what is in the best interest of our citizens. If I become governor, whomsoever it is that is in the federal government will receive my full cooperation in order that our citizens can get the best possible results.
Well, there are still several steps to take ahead of that time when even the primaries will hold within the party. But as expected, the deputy governor was also bullish about his chances of securing the ticket. So do you think you can beat him for that ticket, as it were?
From my findings, I think I can.
Okay, so tell us one more thing. I mean, we see today that there are reports of a fresh crisis hitting the PDP because there's this legacy group who say they walked out of a meeting of the council meeting that was called, executive council meeting that was called on Wednesday, saying that they are protesting, they don't oppose the governor picking a candidate or imposing a candidate for the party. What's going on with that?
Well, I think it's part of what I'll be telling you. Why do they say that? I have also told you, the governor has not made a statement. He's being suspected. Can we dwell on speculations? I think the answer is no. But I think that a political solution can be effected. All parties must be approached so that we can get the right results. I still believe that there is a way out. Honestly, I do.
Do you think that if the governor has a candidate in mind, do you think it is imperative for him to say so now?
Oh, sure. You know, politics is not a secret society. You must tell somebody. Otherwise, how will it relay your message? And if your message is not related, then the beneficiary will gain nothing. At the same time, the governor is also obliged to get feedback. He can sound out some of his trusted political leaders, some of his trusted political aides, those of them who have the courage to tell him to his face what the word is on the street. Because whatever we do, we are all going back to the streets to get endorsement. When the governor was a victim of this, of the high-handedness, it was the people in the street that saved him. Nothing else. If it was about money, power, and the rest, we had lost. But the people of Edo, they say, they will not accept. So we must be mindful how we handle. This issue is an issue that needs a lot of wisdom, a lot of tact, and our attitude must be the right attitude.
I'm a little concerned about the fact, I mean, as you said, you are one of the most experienced politicians in the state. You've been in this game for a very long time. You have always played the role of a conciliator. And some people will say, oh, look, you've thrown your hat in the ring as well. You who have always served as this conciliator and this calming factor. How are people accepting this, especially now that it does appear that these skills which you have shown over the years will now are most needed?
You have hit the nail on the head. If you adopt me, I am in a position to reach all sides. They will trust me because we have known ourselves for a long time. I have maintained my friendships. This is the time I will reap from my goodwill. It's more valuable than money.
When you are taking the very thing which they desire, I mean, usually kingmakers are one step ahead or one step higher, elevated, and those who desire to be king, at least when they are still seeking to be that king until at least they eventually get to that position. Do you think that they would listen to you when you are now in the same ring, desiring what it is that they too desire?
Yeah, but that is what politics is about. It's about negotiation. It's about persuasion. Nothing is off the table. It's about what Who can we put up that can win for us?
All right.
What product can we, who has credibility with the people? Who has integrity? Who can we push forward that will attract even interest in other parties? That is what we need now. That's what we need. And that's why I said we must subsume our personal interest so that our collective interest can be sustained. The party, like they say, is supreme. Let us act in the interest of our party. I believe very sincerely, if I believed that there was somebody more qualified than myself at this point in time, I would easily just say, this man is there, let him do it. Because you see, everybody who has come out has his own small nest. I am the only one who is acceptable to all. And I say this very modestly. I don't mean to be arrogant. It's not in my character.
All right, still many rivers to cross, so let me not hypothesize about what may likely happen, because you will say that, well, he has not said he was going to do anything yet, so people shouldn't react based on that, but they're all politicians, so they hear things, and so, but who knows? Well, we'll keep our tabs on this and look to bring everyone back in the days ahead, but in the meantime, thank you for coming on this morning, and all the best to you.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
All right, we will be back in a moment. Join us again.
Who's your guy? See how sweet they like beans and rice. Labour Party, I will never leave your side. I will never ever. I dedicate my time forever. Time to you, my people. Even if the road be rough, I know mine. 'Cause together we shall stand. Labour Party, who's your guy? Now Olumide Akpata. See how sweet they like beans and rice. 'Cause together we shall.
President Bola Tinubu's 2024 budget proposal struck a responsive chord for many of these legislators at the joint session, who believe there is a huge chance for success, particularly with a planned economic growth of 3.76%. Although the lawmakers have barely a month to conclude the budget defense process, they show a determination to double down on the scrutiny of the budget.
And that is the reason why we've called MDAs and scrutinized their performances in the 2023 so that we can see how the 2024 projection can be attained. There are a lot of leakages, and we're working on how we can block those leakages. And amendment that we need to do on the Fiscal Responsibility Act, we're going to do it in order to enhance and bring sanction to those MDAs that pilfer into the revenue generated.
Reactions began pouring in on the president's call for expedited action on the 2024 proposal.
I don't think it's about the amount of time, it's about how we use the time. We have a constitutional duty to go line by line, issues by issue, and ensure that the numbers, agrees with the shared microeconomic objective.
The proposal is bold and courageous. I think that the legislature will have little or not too much work to do. The budget will act as a stimulus package to address the current poverty line that Nigeria has fallen into, and once again recover our economy and fertilize it for even growth.
The MDAs must be on their toes. They must be ready to come for the budget defense 24/7.
The last time when we had to screen ministers, we had to suspend our recess in order to do it, and we worked till 11 at night some days. It might have to be the same thing again this time, but because really the time is short.
There are various reactions to the federal government's borrowing pattern and the Senate President's request for a reduction of the nation's debt profile.
Above all, Africa is a very fair budget, except that we have to look at the area of funding, the area of borrowing, because now we are borrowing 8.7 trillion naira, which is about $8.9 billion. So obviously speaking, I think that's not too much of borrowing for 250 million people.
What we need is more transparency. We need to know where the money has gone to and what it's being used for.
Shortly after the joint session, the Senate convened in a closed door where a resolution was taken to continue with plenary for the next 2 days only, after which it will close to resume on the 12th of December. From the National Assembly, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
All right, so yes, indeed, there you see Mr. Ogbonakugu joins us here in the studios this morning. He is an investment, promotion, and economic development expert. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
All right, thanks for having me.
After all of those rituals, for budget presentation, Mr. Rewani was quick to bring us back down to earth, just pointing out some stark realities which stares us all in the face. And I think we might just go ahead and listen to him where he was talking about basics. So if these don't address the basics, then it's as good as high-sounding or highfalutin words or scenario for those people who require those basic things to be done. So here is what he said about it.
The budget deficit last year was over 6% of GDP. You're bringing it down to 4% of GDP. I think that is remarkable. You must give credit. In any case, the budget was crafted by Mr. Budget himself. Ben Akagwize has been on it, so you don't get better than that. So in terms of its crafting, in terms of its direction, in terms of the goals, I think there's no doubt about the fact that a good job was done, right? But
so if the subsidy was still there?
Oh, then you would have been at 7%, if not 8% of GDP.
Of GDP.
Yeah, but the comfort zone for regional integration in most parts of the world is 3% of GDP, right? So you've gone from 6% of GDP to 4%. Moving directionally, you're okay, but the target is to make it go that way. If you didn't have this, when you say subsidies, first of all, subsidies have not gone. Subsidies have been reduced. But the subsidies are not just in PMS and petrol, but they're also in the exchange rate. So you've taken part of that and taken part of this, and then you begin to do other things.
Well, he eventually went on and actually said that, look, if the prices of bread and rice, basic and many things, are not impacted by all of these budgetary scenarios that we do, we're wasting our time. So basically tell us, how do we humanize this budget?
I think the first step is presenting the budget after planning and all of that. Then it now begins to translate into Naira and Kobo by way of implementation. Now, is it going to work immediately or, translate to prices of goods coming down? Of course it won't. But is it going to are we going to go on that path of growth and development? Of course we are. But whether we like it or not, the mistakes of the past will always face you as soon as you come to the present day. So the reality is there. So what we need to interrogate further is, what are the economic plans? What are the strategies that this government intends to use to now begin to drive prices down and then begin to, push back on inflation? So those are the things I'm looking at. And then if you're injecting more funds into the economy, of course it will jumpstart a lot of transactions. But as far as I'm concerned, there has to be that, well-strategic plan on how to get the economy back on stream.
But year on year, I mean, this process is required and it's usually done. But we've also seen, even more so, I stand corrected, this time, the exodus of a lot of young professionals who are seeking greener pastures elsewhere because they think that their skills will be better appreciated in another clime. So would it be a fair assessment for people to say, look, that's just a test the result right there of whether or not our budgets over the years have had an impact on society or on people?
Now, leadership generally need to have this understanding that the world will not stand at the spot waiting for Nigeria. So we need to move fast. The young people, whether we like it or not, not just the young people, a lot of people just feel, if I'm well appreciated, not just tolerated, I'll definitely go to where I'm being appreciated. Then again, the FX, the FX issue, the Naira depreciation, I will earn better when I'm out there. But that does not change, it doesn't change the reality, but all it does is it sends the signal to everyone who's at the helm of affair. Your value proposition you need to look inwards and see, what am I bringing to the table into governance? What am I bringing? Because if what you're bringing cannot change the basic things of life as far as this nation is concerned, we're not going anywhere.
But as an investment person, looking at our business environment and the way policies are framed and implemented here, do you get that sense that we are aware that, look, it's a global village, not even far beyond Africa, looking amongst ourselves in Africa, saying, look, if we don't do the right things and create that environment here, businesses could shift to other parts of Africa. I mean, look at Angola, what investors prefer to do with Angola than Nigeria because of the oil and gas sector. So do you see that being portrayed by us here?
Generally speaking, as soon as this government came, the first thing, when you see the government, the first moves they make, like my people will say, the first step a dancer takes will tell you whether the person is a good dancer or not. Yes, the president he's actually driving the investment. He's actually leading the investment drive, which is very good. Because, I mean, I've seen him have meetings, like in India, he was having meetings with ministers, which is sometimes not, protocol-wise, he's supposed to be talking just to the president. But he's now coming down to talk to the investors himself. Because these things are needed, whether we like it or not, because a lot has gone wrong. We have so much, okay, what are the driving forces for investment? You have to look at, the market is there. You have to look at, do we have the enabling environment that we talk about all the time? Because that's the constant thing, efficiency in your system. If, for example, anybody that wants to do one business or the other, they have these bottlenecks that they meet at the end of the day. Investors have a culture. Yeah. They don't like to walk into deep holes where they don't see light at the end of the tunnel. Because these funds we're talking about, they can deploy these funds in other parts of the world and get the same profit. They only think profit. They're not even thinking about giving employment to your people. So the narrative, what we are pushing out there is very crucial. And I like the fact the president is, so every other person must push to make sure that we begin to drive and woo investors into our country, because that will also change, help our FX, because if you have more dollar into your economy, of course it will help, stabilize your currency.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember when the president went to just a few weeks ago, was it just last week, where he said, look, you can bring in your money and take it out. I mean, we have removed the bottlenecks that prevents you from taking out your money.
So it's in Saudi as well. Saudi, yeah, Germany?
Yeah, Germany. It was Germany that he said that. And it would be very interesting to see how that eventually, whether that attracts investors, and that there will be no bottlenecks in terms of them being able to take out their funds. But as somebody who's looking at this budget, and the budget has been tagged that should renew hope, budget of renewed hope. Are there any aspects that has ignited your optimism in what 2024 holds, economically speaking?
Now, if you look at education, because I mean, if you don't have a well-informed citizenry, it becomes very difficult, whether you like it or not, because leadership emanates from the citizenry. So, I mean, the kind of money that, you know, is being voted to education, I mean, I'm very impressed. And again, that structure of, you know, having this student loan thing work in Nigeria, for me, is fantastic, because a lot of people want to be educated, they need to be educated, but I mean, they don't have the means. So if this kind of structure is made to work in our economy, it's going to help a whole lot. See, everything you see in countries like India, for example, you see there is this health tourism going to India. It's not because people just woke up and then India just appeared. There were strategies used. There were structures put in place. There's even a corporation designed to, skill people in different fields, and then that skill that they've been giving to people in India, that's what you're seeing today. Because I mean, there'll be no lack of people. Like there's a mass exodus from India also, but you see, it doesn't change the fact that if you look at our population, you train more people. As people move, there's no vacuum, because as soon as you do, see, they go as far as the organization I'm talking about, they go as far as even checking the dexterity of individuals from young age. You pick them up. So we don't have things like ITF in Nigeria, and you can't even trace exactly what they have done in the past 5 years or 10 years. So these are the things we need to, they need to pay attention. The government needs to pay attention to such and such organizations where you need to develop people's skills. So for me, that's a good step in the right direction. And then you look at the agricultural sector, I mean, a lot is going to happen there, the activities. So it still boils down to how much education, both formal and informal education, that we have. I mean, so for me, it's very key. I mean, I was very...
So while we're looking at the amount of monies that have been, earmarked for certain areas of government, especially in the social services, the president is talking about how they want to reduce the poverty rate. They want to fight insecurity. Of course, that will also have impact on agriculture, and also, tackle unemployment, as well as a lot of other social impact areas. I'm wondering whether he also mentioned, I think it's very important to emphasize, the fact that they intend to get value for money. I think that the coordinating minister of the economy, also underlined that when they spoke about the breakdown of the budget, that they do not intend to fund this from debt or borrowings. What they intend to do is ensure that they're able to ramp up revenue and focus on getting value for money. Each naira that is spent, they must be able to get the maximum value for that naira. Do you think that we have, given our culture of waste over the years, do you think that we have a mechanism in place to be able to ensure that indeed, whatever it is we spend, we get value for money?
No, it's not rocket science. Evaluation, project monitoring, management, and evaluation is not rocket science. So we already have institutions that are saddled with the responsibility to carry out, project monitoring and evaluation.
Which institutions are these?
National Assembly, that's part of their job, oversight function, that's part of the job, that's project monitoring, anyhow you want to look at it.
Yeah, but the executive doesn't have powers over the National Assembly.
No, they have powers over, there's just to, put the checks and balances. And then again, the Ministry of Budget and Planning, they also have that job to make sure that we see the deliverables, matching it with the budget that they have set up, for each MDA. So those structures are there. It's just being able to, make sure that the effectiveness of some of these organizations, we push and make sure that they give us results. I like the fact that, the coordinating minister he's well experienced, so he should understand that even the Ministry of Finance, they have an efficiency unit. So that is part of what they do. So it's just to make sure that everybody, starts to do what they're supposed to do and what they're paid to do.
Let's go to Lagos. Okay. How are you doing?
First of all, I'm interested in us taking a closer look at, what has been budgeted for, or what the administration is interested in looking at in securing loan, which they say will cover critical infrastructure. And from the last check, from the budget, the debt management office, our debt is as high as 87 trillion naira. How wise is this decision to embark on this loan, given the fact that even the administration had promised that, they won't embark on excessive borrowing in the future? And should we begin to also ask questions about, this critical infrastructure and, which areas will those infrastructure lie?
Let's see. First, there's no way you won't borrow as it stands right now, because if you have need for funding, like even big businesses all over the world, they all borrow. So, but my issue is your ability to repay those loans. If you use the loans for those critical infrastructure, we're still talking about roads in Nigeria, for God's sake. We're still talking about railways. So let me give you a very simple example. There is no way you will have a functional solid mineral sector without proper railways. It's not possible, because you can't even, some of these metals, they're so heavy that you can't ply them on the roads. So you need railways. So these are part of the things that if we're going to borrow to put into the railway sector or the seaport to have infrastructure to take goods out, because you need to earn foreign exchange. So if you have those critical infrastructure done, our roads to the factory, the farmland. So these are critical things that we must, if we need to borrow money. But like the minister and the president have said, we value for money. So it's not just spending money. That efficiency, that prudence, as far as budget delivery is concerned, we must pay strong attention to it.
But still, talk to us about the viability, the ability to pay back these loans. We're adding to the already humongous debt burden.
Of course, you see, if you see governance as business, the reality is you can generate funds. For example, let me go back to the issue of solid minerals. If we have an efficient system as regards solid minerals, you can earn money. You can rent from solid mineral. Can actually, you can now begin to apply those kind of funds into repayment of those loans. You can look at the agri sector. We've not gone anywhere. We are still at that basic, feeding each other with agriculture. We are Nigeria is the largest producer of cassava globally. Thailand is the second largest producer of cassava. Thailand makes over $2 billion from cassava, and Nigeria makes about less than $200 million from cassava. What does that tell you? There's something that they are doing we're not doing. And we have the capacity and the ability to do such things. So in reality, if we pay attention, bring in the right people, and put them in the right positions, you will see we can propel the economy to raise the kind of resources that we need to repay those loans. Nigeria, we have, everybody says potential. Our ability to move those potential into reality is what gives us the enablement to repay those loans.
Well, I'll again say for the average Nigerian, they didn't, personally incur those loans. So they might not be able to relate with paying back loans. Maybe they have their personal loans that they're paying back, but the aggregate loans is quite difficult for them to understand. What they understand right now, and that's where the conversation started from, is how this will impact on their everyday life. The prices of, we're in December, right? Christmas is around the corner. So what a lot of people will be focusing on now is how to buy that bag of rice. If you can't afford the bag of rice, at least maybe half of it or a quarter of it, how to buy chicken for Christmas. I know families who bought it like 4 months ago, they bought little chicks so that they can feed the chicks with the leftovers, so the chicks will be full-grown chicken now. That's their decision. But for a lot of people, it is survival right now. Maybe we're looking too far ahead for the 2024 budget, which, by the way, will start off early next year. Maybe the capital component might even take longer to kick in. There's still a 2023 budget in place, which might be able to impact on December, so we can have maybe not a dirty December, as I say, a clean and well-fed December. How should the government approach at least this December such that prices don't go as high as we project them to go with the inflation, such that people can at least still survive? Is there something to do within the 2023 budget which is still in operation? We can talk about 2024 later, but first 2023 for December.
The government needs to inject liquidity into the system, but there's not so much that the 2023 budget will do. Of course, the budget was inherited, and then the supplementary budget came, and then the supplementary budget, has targeted areas, and then we expect a stimulation from those expenditure, and then put it in when those monies are put into the system, and then again the humanitarian structure, the social. From the social end, from the Ministry of Humanitarian, supporting the very poor people. But the reality is, we need to get the country running so that our people will begin to feel the impact of what the government is doing. But I think the expectation should be more on next year's budget, which is an end-to-end from this present administration, not an inherited budget. So the much we expect might not happen.
It's not a good note, but I guess we have to keep tabs on that to ensure that certain things and the variables, they are really, really addressed. So if you said they're going to plug the loopholes, they intend to get value for money, well, we want to see their actions by what they do, not just what they say. So that it will be a major one that will keep our tabs on. But I want to thank you for coming on. Gubernatorial Kuku is an economic and business development expert. We will be back in a moment. Don't go away.
Who's your guy? Our Lumide Apata. See us we dey like beans and rice. Labour Party, I will never leave your side. I will never ever. I dedicate my time forever. Time to you, my people. Even if the road rough, I know mine. Cause together we shall stand. Labour Party, who's your guy? Now Lumide Apata. See us we dey like beans and rice. Cause together we shall State.
And so it begins, the process which will lead to the passage of the 2024 appropriation bill. It's the first allotted day as the House of Representatives commences debate of the bill scheduled for second reading. Lawmakers comment the general principles of the bill as they look to play their part in the actualization of the president's plans.
There is indeed a sacred obligation on all of us as members of parliament in oversighting ministries, departments and agencies of government to ensure that we scrutinize these officials of government to partner with the efforts of Mr. President so that Nigerians can enjoy the dividends of democracy.
Well, I thought it's very necessary to commend Mr. President is for his own readiness in the investment in the life of young people.
Young parliamentarians debate the education budget and addressing revenue shortfall by cutting wastage in governance.
In the history of Nigeria, we're having the youth having access to students' loan, having education freely accessible to the young ones.
The federal government has an excellent report on its table, the Oronsai report. Mr. Speaker, if Nigeria wants to consolidate revenues, decrease wastage, and ensure efficiency, we must insist on the full implementation of that report, which recommended that certain agencies that are duplicitous should be merged together.
The monitoring and evaluation, the emphasis that was placed on that by Mr. President further explains the detail and the attention that is required by all of us, my honorable colleagues, in our various committees.
Honorable Fulata raises concerns over some parameters of the budget.
The power market, the exchange rate is about 1,165. Whereas the official rate is 750. The third area of concern, Mr. Speaker, is the allocation for education. Mr. Speaker, we must declare an emergency on education because there is mass exodus of lecturers from universities and tertiary institutions.
Day one of the budget comes to an end as the House adjourns plenary to Friday, hoping to pass the bill through second reading for committees to commence the budget defense process. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
All right, welcome back. Yes, indeed, the former presidential aide is here with us. Good morning, and thank you for coming on today.
Good morning.
So we hear some lawmakers talking about mass exodus of lecturers from universities. We've also seen several people also talk about mass exodus even in the health sector, almost across board. And probably what they might want people to get, the sense that they intend to ensure that this budget addresses that. I guess time will tell. But from your perspective and experience, could you explain to us, if you can, what happens? How do these line items of the budget, because we know you get to see year on year the budget for furniture, and everybody knows out there, you don't regularly change your furniture every year. You don't have to, get brand new cars every year. We've seen some states say, look, we couldn't afford it, so we're using the cars from our predecessors. It means that can happen. But talk to us about all those, because those are the things that get the budget, as well, for want of words, bloated in some respects.
Yeah, very true. I actually remember that one of the first things that the Buhari administration did in 2015 was to try and change the culture or the process of how the budget is developed. So you have two options, So the first option, which is prevalent most of the time, is that the line items are essentially treated as routine, So this was what we did last year. This was what we did 2 years ago, and it's just pushed again with a little bit of review. At times, looking at the changes in the pricing and stuff like that. For the most part, compared to a system where we're trying to say that, look, let's just start afresh and take a fresh look on what is it that money should be spent on. That was critical then because the past administration was trying to shift the focus of putting more money into issues of human capital development.
The success of that, I remember what you're talking about. I remember talk around the envelope system versus zero budgeting. I think that's what it was.
Exactly.
But then people have said, did it really work? It was one thing for the Ministry of Finance to say this was what we wanted to do. But when you really look at from when they said it to when they started to implement it, there wasn't much of a change, was there?
So there was a bit of pushback, when we wanted to move to that zero budgeting to say that let's just start afresh from the scratch. That's got a bit of resistance, both systemic and I think there wasn't sufficient political will to push the zero budgeting concept. That was what happened. But I think, to your question, there are quite a few things that one sees in this budget that is interesting, that is good. So the government is trying to make a good attempt to reduce deficit. Significant cut. About from 3%, from 6% to 3%. Very important. There's a clear attempt to spend more money on human capital development, education and health, in 2 trillion, 1 trillion, quite important. There's also, number three, the effort, and the statement of the president to say, look, let us do more of private public partnership, especially in the areas of critical infrastructure. So you see all of those good things. But the problem here is that I see at least 4 levels of crisis that we are dealing with, which requires us to be even more deliberate in terms of what we are dealing with. We have the fiscal crisis. There's the fiscal crisis on this hand, there's the debt crisis on this hand, on 2 different levels. So we need to raise more money, and it's a crisis. If you're able to raise more money, then the issue of the ballooning debts can actually begin to simmer down. That's a big one. And I think the president seems to have some kind of experience based on what happened in Lagos. But that's going to be one big element to measure the seriousness and the success or the failure of this government, the ability to raise more money. And like I said, I think he has some good record in that. That's the first crisis. The second crisis is the food crisis, inflation crisis. Look, just like Riwane said, if people cannot find a positive impact as soon as possible, something has to be done in a very, very radical way to address the food crisis, the inflation of the basic food stuff that people eat is very, very critical. I don't see a lot of the specific actions that will be taken, and I hope that is coming forth. The third crisis is the procurement crisis. Now, this is a big deal, and we have not talked enough about it. So you have a system where when they bring the line items, the pricing that government brings is outrageous. I find it outrageous in my 8 years experience. So you want to build a borehole. If I wanted to build a borehole, I'd probably get it done for 600,000 or less. But guess what? Government comes in and puts a price tag of 5 million on the same stuff. Now, of course, we understand that there has to be some kind of markup, but that culture is becoming so insensitive considering what the Nigerian people are going through. So there has to be a very, very good look at this procurement issue. The other problem with procurement is that, of course, it also causes delay when you need to get things done very quickly. And I see that the president has set up a committee that is going to be chaired by the Attorney General of the Federation to try and look at this procurement stuff. And I think they should pay attention to the pricing. It's a scandal, the kind of pricing that happens. And the last...
So just to... Yeah. I really hate to interrupt you. I hope you don't lose your train of thought. But, with procurement, when you look at the pricing, some people want to talk about the efficiency. Because, there are people who, I think it was also during the Buhari administration that when the Minister for Works moved a number of contractors back to site, contractors who had not been paid for years, you have to now then ask, assuming those contractors had borrowed monies to do the jobs, to execute the contracts, excuse me, which they had, which they had gotten or which the bids that they had won, how would they have been able to pay back when you're dealing with a government when you don't even know what time you're going to get paid for the work that you're doing? So it would seem that alongside looking at the price, government also needs to look at how quickly, how do they address payment of their contractors?
I mean, that's a point that is very easy to agree to because, look, people... A laborer is worthy of his wages, So if contractors have been given a job to do and they don't have the resources to do it, there's going to be another problem, which is another problem that goes with the fiscal crisis. A lot of the spending in the infrastructure it is clear that federal government, the public sector, cannot on its own sort the problems in infrastructure. The government doesn't just have the money to do it. It's just not going to happen. And that is why the idea of a PPP is very, very important. You need to get the money from the private sector. There is more money in the private sector, by the way, than in government. That's just the truth. If you look at our GDP, over 100 trillion naira. So how much is government budget this year? 27. So there has to be more input, investment from the private sector in those critical areas of infrastructure. But to my last point of the crisis is what I call the insensitivity crisis. Is a big crisis. So government is planning to spend 27 trillion, okay, which I think is important to do that. We have to spend money, to get things going on. But there is a crisis of not showing the people any sense that, things are difficult. The people are tightening their belts, whether they like it or not. But government officials, in terms of how they come out, in terms of the SSCs, in terms of even the kind of things that they spend money on, we have not seen any kind of sensitivity at all. And
what do you want to see?
Crisis.
Tell us precisely.
So it would be useful, for instance, to have the government say that this is what we're going to cut. You know, we are cutting this, we are cutting this, we are cutting this spending on government officials, we are reducing this, you know, some kind of austerity measures for government officials. And there are a lot of SSEs. I just spoke to the question of procurement. The pricing is ridiculous. This was why Obasanjo started due process in 1999 and brought Sister Obi Ezekwesili, you know, and that led to the procurement office, the Bureau of Public Procurement. But the whole tone has been lost. The idea has been lost completely. So we need to fix that so that the people can get a sense that while we're suffering, the government is also not just sitting down and living as if there's nothing that is changing.
We looked at some in Lagos not long ago, so we might as well just go over to you guys in Lagos.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Good morning, Mr. Konde. You know, from the beginning of the program, we've been talking about how important it is to give a human face to the budget, you know, beyond the big grammar and the adjectives we've been using to describe it, ambitious. The critical factor is how it impacts on the people. And if we look at those sectors that will impact on the people, it appears there's little to share. Look at education, which takes 1.23 trillion naira, 2.18 trillion naira, beg your pardon. Look at the health sector, which has been hugely impacted by the brain drain. It takes less than 10%, just half of their budget declaration, which has been the consistent clamor over the years. So should we be excited about this pattern? How far can this go to transform those sectors and impact on the generality of the population?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think that if we are able to spend this much in a coordinated way on education and health, I think we might be up to something. I mean, I think you know, the guys that are managing education and health, particularly, you know, health, you know, come with a lot of you know, expertise and credibility. Both of them, Professor Tahi and Professor Pate. So with this increase in health and education, if we are able to get the money out into the right places, if we are able to have the required coordination with the state governments, you see, because issues of health and education, they are essentially, you know, concurrent list, and so there's a lot of drive, you know, that the state must be involved. If you are able to get that collaboration and get the money out, we might be able, this government might be able to create some positive impact. You know, the devil is in the details, you know, as they say. But I think the fact that there has been an increase, you know, in the spending, in the estimated budget for those two areas, I think is a good thing. The question is, what is going to happen with implementation? You know, how are you going to get the states, you know, to collaborate effectively in a way that will deliver results?
Well, my question is quite simple, Mr. Konde, and it goes thus. If 600,000 naira will build or drill a borehole, and the money budgeted for it is 5 million naira, and it looks like it's still a trend till today, who keeps the 4.4 million naira? Is it shared between the contractor and the agency in charge? So we know at least the people we should look to get our Commonwealth back from.
Yeah, you know, and
please go ahead.
Well, I mean, very, very important point, my brother. So that's why I said it's a good thing that the president seemed to have recognized this problem and has set up a review committee to look at the idea of the whole issue of public procurement, you know, and Mr. Lateef Fagbemi, SAN, is going to be chairing that committee. And this is somebody that comes with very tremendous credentials, you know, that we hope and believe that we can have an important reform of public procurement. It's a very big deal. You know, you and I, we will spend our resources in a more prudent way than government does. We need to get government to that point of prudence.
All right, you know, I do remember that, I think it was in 2009, former speaker then, Devinji Bankole, did say 65% of the funds allocated for the budget was unaccounted for. And he said, unspent budgetary funds usually develop wings. And then, because I think at some point where you get to hear people say, oh no, the year has come to an end, boy, what do we do with this money? We need to find somewhere. What kind? So that attitude, that mindset. So when you speak about that sensitivity crisis, procurement, all of those things, so they need to take up that cream. So absolutely, huge scenarios there that we need to address because the budget may not necessarily be as bloated. In fact, we might not even be, we have no business being broke. Absolutely. If all of these issues are the same, because if a borehole is 600,000 and you put 5 million, of course you'll be broke if you spend much more than you require. Olalu, thank you for coming on today. So,
thank you so much.
Let's go with, let's see if we can take a look at some messages from here. Hussein says about the foreign loan, the concern of an average Nigerian is to have access to basic needs of life like food, shelter, clothing, and job opportunities. What is the rationale behind the budget that is beyond the expected revenue by government? It simply gives room for corruption and misappropriation among political class and their allies.
Well, HK AZ says, he's almost speaking along the same lines. Whilst we continue to hope for a better future, if the federal government of Nigeria does not deal with internal economic sabotage, their efforts will only fatten a few cows in the corridors of power. The PNID is a case in point. People who should be in Kirikiri are walking free.
Some pessimism there. Festus Akimboyewa says Nigeria needs a long-term, stable, sustainable, healthy growth and employment generation budget. The 2024 budget appears to tick all the boxes. Government must focus on the revenue generation side of the budget and fight the monstrous inflation that's making Nigerians poorer every day. May God bless Nigeria. Amen to that.
Well, that is the show today. We do thank you all for watching. So we'll see you next time. Remember, make it a December to remember. I'm Chamberlain, so goodbye.
I didn't see that comment. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Maokwe Ogun-Yusuf. Have a great one.
And try to remember to make someone smile this December. Thank you so much for watching. Have a pleasant weekend. I am Bukola Koka.
Whatever happened to dirty December, guys? But hey, stop inflating budgets, okay? If it is 600,000, put 600,000. Have the fear of God, or at least the fear of impoverishing people. Goodbye. I'm Kayode Okikere.